And away we go, episode 1211 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Thursday, December 4th, 2025. We now are 3 weeks away from Christmas, on which the Washington Commanders have a game. Commanders home to the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday afternoon, December 25th at 1. But we as fans of the Commanders, who used to be the Redskins, are not happy because of the disrespect of Redskins greats by the Pro Football Hall of Fame's voting process. That disrespect continues. The Pro Football Hall of Fame on Wednesday morning announced that 5 individuals have reached the finalist stage across 3 categories for possible election to the Pro Football Hall of Fame's class of 2026. Not among those finalists, legendary former Redskins offensive lineman Joe Jacoby. The Pro Football Hall of Fame on November 19th announced that 9 individuals had reached the semifinalist stage in the seniors category for the Pro Football Hall of Fame's class of 2026. Among those 9 individuals, Joe Jacoby and also former Redskins receiver Henry Ellard. But neither Jacoby nor Ellard is a finalist, and this is off the bad news that we got last week. The Pro Football Hall of Fame on October 22nd announced that 52 modern-era players had advanced in the voting process for the Pro Football Hall of Fame's class of 2026. Among those players were 2 prominent Redskins legends, kickoff returner, punt returner, and running back Brian Mitchell and linebacker London Fletcher. However, the Pro Football Hall of Fame on November 25th announced that 26 modern-era players had advanced to the semifinalist stage in the voting process for the Pro Football Hall of Fame's class of 2026, and not among those players were Brian Mitchell and London Fletcher. The continued disrespect of Redskins greats by the Pro Football Hall of Fame's voting process is ridiculous. Joe Jacoby, Brian Mitchell, London Fletcher all should have gotten inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame years ago, to say nothing of other Redskins legends who have compelling cases for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Guys like tight end Jerry Smith and edge defender Dexter Manley and receiver Gary Clark. Look, I get it. Every NFL team has its gripes in terms of who is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame and who is not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but does it not seem like our team has gotten done dirty by the voting process for the Pro Football Hall of Fame more than most teams? Hello and welcome to this Thursday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. I mentioned it now being 3 weeks from Christmas. It was on Christmas Eve 2011 that the Redskins lost to the Minnesota Vikings 33-26 at FedEx Field in a famous game in which then Vikings running back and future Skins running back Adrian Peterson suffered a torn left ACL and torn left MCL. Washington this season, as you may have heard, has dealt with injuries a good bit, but we this Sunday afternoon have the team now known as the Commanders at the Vikings at 1. Coming up on the show, a lot of Commanders conversation of them on Wednesday beginning their practice week. Next segment, discussion of the offense, including a breakdown of the team's initial injury report for the game in terms of offensive players. Mike quarterback Jayden Daniels play at the Vikings. Also good news on receiver Noah Brown, and insight from head coach Dan Quinn on receiver Treylon Burks and right tackle Josh Conerly Jr. The following segment, discussion of the defense, including a breakdown of the team's initial injury report for the game in terms of defensive players, and more indication from Dan Quinn that he is open to remaining as defensive coordinator beyond this season. And the segment after that, discussion of the Commanders when it comes to effort and attitude in this lost season. Some good stuff from Dan Quinn on Wednesday afternoon. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Capitals, Georgetown basketball, and Virginia basketball. The Caps, they late night on Wednesday night won their 6th consecutive game, and for the 9th time in 10 games, a 7-1 win at the San Jose Sharks. The Hoyas, they on Wednesday night beat UMBC 90-81 at Capital One Arena. And the Cavaliers, they late night on Wednesday night won at Texas 88-69 in the ACC SEC Challenge. Before we get to some feedback, bad news for our Washington Wizards. Bilal Coulibaly is injured again. The Wizards on Wednesday night announced that he, in their 121-102 loss at the Philadelphia 76ers on Tuesday night, sustained a strained right oblique. He's expected to miss multiple weeks. Man, he has had a hard time staying healthy. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from a good friend of this podcast, Howard Gutman, the former United States ambassador to Belgium. Ambassador Gutman, a longtime friend of and strategic advisor for Commanders Limited partner Mitchell Rails, also is a longtime friend of Commanders Limited partner Mark Ein. Writes the ambassador, Al, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I have so many thoughts about recent developments with the team, about operational lose-out, about the significance of Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St. Juste being rated by PFF much better than Amos, Lattimore, and Sainristil. But I guess those thoughts are for another day. I instead wanted a flag for you for your failure to address what I thought was a critical point about the game on Sunday night, and to get your thoughts. You covered Jake Moody and said that he had a good debut, hitting 2 short field goals and 2 extra points, but I thought Dan Quinn and the team spoke volumes about Moody before he ever made his first attempt by choosing to punt from the Broncos' 39-yard line rather than either attempt a 56-yard field goal or go on 4th down. We were down 3-0 at that point, and a field goal would have changed momentum. We were too far to go on 4th, so the only choice was a field goal or a punt. Quinn chose to punt. In today's NFL, any average or above-average kicker gets to try a 56-yarder. So Moody's debut would appear to have been depressing indeed. He missed the 56-yarder by never being allowed to even try it. Thank you for the email, Ambassador Gutman. Great topic. Not that this is that big of a deal, but the field goal attempt would have been a 57-yarder. The down was 4th and 8 for the Commanders at the Broncos 39 with 4:43 left in the first quarter. The way that you figure out the distance on a field goal is you add 18 yards to the line of scrimmage, but whatever, 57 yards, 56 yards. Not that much of a difference. The Ambassador's point remains. Dan Quinn's decision to punt in that spot was a very conservative decision, not unlike what he did at the end of the first half. And I did not like what he did at the end of the first half. The Commanders got the ball at their 35 with 16 seconds left in the second quarter while trailing 13-7, but having 2 first-half timeouts. But Quinn had quarterback Marcus Mariota take a knee to end the half. I get what Quinn was thinking, but that was a really conservative approach. The Commanders getting a field goal via that possession was not unrealistic. Keep in mind, though, that the Commanders, for the overtime loss to the Broncos, had a new long snapper, Zach Trinner. As the team's number 1 long snapper, Tyler Ott was inactive due to illness and a back ailment. This issue of the 57-yard field goal attempt that was not attempted actually came up during Dan Quinn's pre-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon. The final exchange of the presser was this exchange between Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack and Quinn.
In the opening quarter, you guys passed on the long field goal, 57-yard kick there. Obviously, new kicker, new long snapper. I'm just curious, what went into that specific decision, and have you kind of determined what range you have for Jake Moody at this point?
Yeah, it was definitely the former, not the latter. So it was the snapper new, kicker new, and so I thought this is not the first one I want to try, going into it. So if we could get into that spot, and I liked – this is some field position where we can go. We've got excellent special teams. If we can pin them down, we can go into that spot, and that was the thought going in. There's certain thresholds that we would try in the regular part of the game, and then obviously those extend at the end of the half or the end of the game. So had it been the end of the half, that would have been well within his spots to go.
All right, there you go. Here, though, is the deal with Jake Moody. His track record as an NFL kicker isn't good, and I talked about this when the Commanders got him. Jake Moody in his career in NFL regular season games is just 13 for 21 on field goal attempts between 40 and 49 yards, and is just 6 for 12 on field goal attempts of at least 50 yards. There's a reason that Jake Moody was available, okay? The Commanders on November 18th announced having signed Moody off the Chicago Bears practice squad. So Dan Quinn not having total faith in Moody to connect on a 57-yard field goal in the first quarter on Sunday night was not unreasonable. Moody is an Adam Peters guy. Moody was taken by the San Francisco 49ers in the 3rd round of the 2023 NFL Draft out of the University of Michigan. Commanders general manager Adam Peters was the Niners assistant GM when they drafted Moody. Look, I hope he does well as the Commanders kicker, but I am going into this eyes wide open. And bigger picture, Adam Peters' inability to figure out kicker since becoming the Commanders GM in January 2024 has been a problem. Jake Moody is the 10th kicker acquired by the Commanders since the start of the NFL's 2024-2025 league year on March 12th, 2024. And, Ambassador, know that the title of the operation is Operation Lose Out, not Operational Lose Out. In fact, we have a theme song. It was put together by a great listener of this podcast, Andy. Here you go.
Operation Lose Out. Yeah, we're running it back. Did it once for JD5. Now we're back on track. Every Sunday feels like deja vu. Dropping L's on purpose. What else we gonna do? Take the snap, take the fall. Let the future make the call. Stack the picks, trust the route. It's version 2.0. Time to lose out.
All right, Operation Lose Out 2.0, a.k.a. OLO. Email from Doug Wilson on the Commanders' overtime loss to the Broncos. Writes Doug, "Hey Galdi, hope you and your family had a great Thanksgiving. Couldn't have been any more proud of our team. Great fight and at least better defensive play. It's clear Joe Witt is a gots-to-go situation, and congratulations to Operation Lose Out 2.0. Thank you for that, Doug. I do think that Joe Witt Jr. is likely gone from the team come the offseason, as he'll want a fresh start with another team. But, it's funny. Dan Quinn's tenure as the Commanders' defensive coordinator could not have started out with a more favorable schedule. You can't say that Witt did some bang-up job as Commanders' defensive coordinator. Heck, he lasted on the job for less than 2 seasons, but his final 4 games as the team's defensive coordinator came against 4 of the best offenses in the NFL, and those are the Dallas Cowboys, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Detroit Lions. So Dan Quinn's first 2 games as the Commanders' defensive coordinator have come against the Miami Dolphins and the Denver Broncos, and the Commanders' next 2 games are against the Minnesota Vikings and the New York Giants. Each of those 4 offenses is no better than mediocre. I'm not saying that Quinn did this on purpose, all right? But man, he could not have planned this any better in terms of giving himself a chance to look good as the team's defensive coordinator. Email from Cupcake in Richmond, Virginia. Writes Cupcake, "First off, happy Thanksgiving. I don't normally start my emails with quotes from disgraced former owners and all-around terrible people, but that felt appropriate for 2 reasons. 1, it's that time of year, and 2, it certainly feels like the Dan Snyder era up in here. Hey, Al, hope you are well, and I'm certainly giving thanks for all you do. Man, I was kind of stoked on us being featured on Hard Knocks this year with the rest of the NFC East. Now, not so much. I just got into the show the last few years and really dig the access. I feel like you can glean a lot from the show. It'll be cool to see how we operate from the inside, but will certainly not be as much fun as the show could have been. Also, I gotta say to everyone who is calling for heads to roll, y'all need to just stop. Year 2 of the regime, it's way too early to be freaking out. This all takes time, and I have faith in both of my boys, DQ and AP. To that end, I'd have thought about the structure moving forward. What do you think of DQ pulling a Joe Gibbs second take and elevating Cliff to assistant head coach in charge of offense, and then staying on as head coach and defensive play caller? This could afford DQ the best of both worlds, keeping doing most of head coaching things he does while now calling plays and having another head coach around to pick up some of the head coaching slack. Seemed to work well enough for Joe. What are your thoughts? Thanks, Al. Love the show. Keep up all of the great work, man. Thank you for the email, Cupcake. I'm with Cupcake on Hard Knocks. The in-season version of HBO's Hard Knocks, in case you didn't know, is focused on the NFC East. The first episode of the season came out on Tuesday night. There was some good stuff on the Commanders. So my favorite part was the footage of the team meeting at which it was announced that quarterbacks coach DeVita Pritchard had been hired as Stanford head coach. The room erupted. Dan Quinn started dousing Pritchard with water. Pritchard got emotional. Just a really nice, touching scene. I know that the whole brotherhood thing with the team can seem cliche, but that scene did speak to the brotherhood that Dan Quinn has talked about so much. I would have no problem with Dan Quinn remaining as defensive coordinator and him giving Cliff Kingsbury an elevated title. I just don't know that that would be enough to keep Kingsbury from leaving for a head coaching job. As I detailed on Wednesday's show, episode 1210, Kingsbury is doing a very good job this season. He's not getting a lot of attention for the job that he's doing, but he's doing a very good job given the circumstances. He, this past offseason, of course, took himself out of consideration for NFL head coaching jobs. I don't know that he wants to do that for a second consecutive offseason. You want to strike while the iron's hot. If Kingsbury wants to be an NFL head coach again, then this coming offseason would seem to be a good time to take an opportunity if it is presented to him. But yeah, I would love for the Commanders to have Kingsbury beyond this season. Today's Law Group, accident and injury lawyers, it will fight for you and win for you. Just recently, an $8 million jury verdict in Baltimore City Circuit Court in a case in which today's Law Group represented the family of a 42-year-old man who died after a simple procedure. Lead attorney Chris Nace is a big Commanders fan and a big supporter of this podcast, and his firm wins trials. If you have a case, contact the Nace Law Group. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group is tremendous. It is a Washington, D.C.-based family law firm that handles medical malpractice, personal injury, birth injury, legal malpractice, and consumer protection cases, offering aggressive advocacy for victims in Washington, D.C. and West Virginia. The Nace Law Group fights for victims of all kinds of situations, including victims of errors made during diagnosis, during surgery, or with medication, victims of injuries caused by dangerous medications or medical devices, as well as defective auto parts, victims of accidents involving cars, trucks, bikes, or motorcycles, victims of deceptive trade practices and false advertising, heck, victims of shady lawyers. If your attorney acts in bad faith, is unethical in his or her counsel, or is negligent in his or her work, you could have a claim for legal malpractice. The Nace Law Group has represented corporate clients throughout the region. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. Well, the 3-9 Washington Commanders on Wednesday afternoon begin their practice week for their game at the 4-8 Minnesota Vikings this Sunday afternoon at 1 in Week 14 of the NFL's 2025 regular season. Next segment, we'll talk Commanders defense. This segment, we talk Commanders offense. 4 Commanders offensive players and 1 Commanders special teams player were on the team's injury report for Wednesday afternoon's practice. Quarterback Jayden Daniels was a limited participant in practice, this off having been inactive for each of the Commanders' last 3 games due to his dislocated left elbow. Receiver Noah Brown was a full participant in practice. He has missed the Commanders' last 10 games off being listed as dealing with groin and knee injuries. The Commanders on October 15th announced having placed Brown on the reserve/injured list. They on November 24th announced having opened the 21-day practice window for Brown. Left tackle Laramie Tunsil and tight end Zach Ertz did not practice but due to rest. And on special teams, long snapper Tyler Ott was a full participant in practice off having been inactive for the Commanders' last game, the 27-26 overtime loss to the Denver Broncos at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football this past Sunday night due to a back ailment and illness. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, he during his day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon, to me, did not sound very optimistic about Jayden Daniels playing at the Vikings. Quinn did a pre-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon. We, during that presser, had this back and forth between Mitch Tischler of Monumental Sports Network and Dan Quinn.
Do you have any update on Jayden Daniels? Has he been cleared for contact? What's your optimism that he'll play this weekend?
Optimistic he's going to get a lot of reps for practice. I'm going to take it all the way through Friday. There's still functional evaluations to go through, but game plan and practicing and that part is good. You'll see on the side it's a little more challenging to work at quarterback when you're not doing the same contact, so we'll have to simulate as much as we can. But he's off to a good start, but we'll go all the way through Friday for sure, but he'll get a lot of reps at practice.
Quickly follow the medical staff clear him for contact?
He has not been cleared for contact. That would be a game, one, but they'll also wait for the whole week too. They have more testing and movements to examine, so that's where we're at.
Yeah, Dan Quinn still, to me, not sounding very optimistic about Jayden Daniels playing at the Vikings, but that may be Quinn trying to keep expectations, including those at Daniels, in check. Under promise, over deliver. That's a great way to go through life. That may well be what Dan Quinn is doing. However, compare how Quinn is talking about Daniels to how Quinn on Wednesday afternoon talked about Noah Brown. We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider Tom Schad of the Washington Post and Dan Quinn.
Dan, what's your level of optimism for Noah Brown this week?
Very much in the green, high. So I got good optimism, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay, so Dan Quinn clearly very optimistic about Noah Brown playing at the Vikings, although Quinn did not want to jinx anything, ergo the knocking on the table. Something that I do think was very encouraging was that Noah Brown on Wednesday afternoon did a post-practice session with reporters. Know this, an injured player speaking to reporters usually is a sign that the player is in fact about to be back, because the idea is the player doesn't talk to reporters when the player is hurting and out for a while and things aren't going well. But when things are getting better and the player is feeling better and the player is on the verge of returning, that is when the player is permitted to speak to reporters. And sure enough, Noah Brown on Wednesday afternoon did a post-practice session with reporters. This, to me, was a sneaky, encouraging sign. We, during this session, had this back and forth between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and Brown.
Dan said, about an hour ago that he's very optimistic that you'll be playing on Sunday. What is your optimism level for Sunday?
Oh, I share the same sentiment. I had a good day of practice today and just want to keep that going on to Sunday.
You said this was the toughest time of your career, kind of working through it mentally. What helped you get through these tough times and dark moments?
Kind of like I mentioned, the people in this building always supporting me, my support system at home, and, at my core, I'm a man of faith. And sometimes situations like this, you want to ask God why, why certain things like that is happening to you. But and I went through that period, not so much, why and pity, but why and, what are you trying to teach me? What can I get better from in this situation? And that's what I've been focusing on.
Obviously you saw what the offense did against Denver. Terry's back. If you get back, it'll feel like, everybody's healthy again. What do you think you can add to the offense to give it even another bigger boost?
I know anytime us three are out there on the field together, it's a problem for defenses in many ways. So I just plan on when I get it back out there being at my best and, threatening the defense in multiple ways like I can.
It is amazing. The Commanders in this regular season have had their top 3 receivers, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel Sr., and Noah Brown, together for just 2 of the team's 12 games. That is incredible. Hopefully, all 3 are available for this game at the Vikings. And it was encouraging that Terry McLaurin was not on the injury report for Wednesday afternoon's practice at all. Perhaps Terry McLaurin finally is fully healthy here in this regular season. Is receiver Treylon Burks going to have a second consecutive impactful game? He in the overtime loss to the Broncos had just 1 reception, but what a reception it was. So 1 catch for 5 yards and a touchdown on 4 targets, and playing on 66% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. The touchdown catch, sensational. 3rd and goal at the 5. Quarterback Marcus Mariota, a 5-yard shotgun touchdown pass to Burks with 9:58 left in the 3rd quarter. Burks on a fade made a spectacular one-arm catch with the right arm while falling down back first and being tightly covered by cornerback Riley Moss. And the hand with which Burks made the catch, his right hand, included a middle finger on which he had recently undergone surgery that caused him to miss a game. He, in this game, returned from a 1-game absence. We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider David Harrison of SI.com and Dan Quinn.
With Treylon Burks, obviously the catch that he made alone is incredible, but you guys don't bring guys in unless you think like this guy can be a Commander. Yep. What are some of the things behind the scenes that you've seen from him that have kind of confirmed that belief that brought him here in the first place?
Yeah, I think it's the unseen work when Adam and his group knew a lot more about him, just going through the process from draft to that. I got a chance just to have fresh eyes, man, and say, like, and I try to do that with every player here. Sometimes when a person's on another team, well, he didn't do this or he did that. And so, like, let's just see what it looks like here. And I think a player like Trey deserves that, have fresh eyes here. And I told him that coming in, man, like, this is your space. And you could feel a hunger to go for it. The unseen work was coming in to learn a new system. Some of our verbiage and communication is unorthodox, but it's not standard NFL wording and formations and groupings. And so it's not just like, add water. Yeah, we used to call this that. And so seeing that type of work, you could feel how important it was. After, his injury to his finger, nope, I'll be back. Where it knew it could be a couple weeks. No. Like, he wasn't having any part of that. Like, that was not an option that he wasn't playing. That's what I felt from him, in the game heading into Denver. Big brace on it. Nope, I'm good. He was catching everything with it. And so that's what I see, a guy that's hungry to prove. And
the Commanders this coming offseason need to upgrade at receiver. That has become quite clear. But hopefully they have something here in Treylon Burks. He was taken by the Tennessee Titans with the number 18 overall pick in the 2022 NFL Draft out of the University of Arkansas. He, for the Titans, was a bust due to injury and performance. The Commanders on October 17th announced having signed Burks as an unrestricted free agent to the practice squad. The Commanders on November 5th announced having signed Burks from the practice squad to the active roster. For all of the talk of the Commanders potentially having blown it with cornerback Emmanuel Forbes Jr., maybe our team has its own Emmanuel Forbes, so to speak, in Treylon Burks. Maybe the Commanders can properly rehab Burks off him being a failed first-round pick for the Titans in the way that the Los Angeles Rams are rehabbing Forbes off him being a failed first-round pick for the Commanders. A Commanders first-round pick who is doing well is right guard Josh Conerly Jr. They took him with the number 29 overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft out of the University of Oregon. He is showing real improvement, was a big part of the Commanders' offensive line being great in that overtime loss to the Broncos. We, on Wednesday afternoon, had this exchange between David Harrison and Dan Quinn.
When it comes to momentum and trying to stack positive performances, being able to hold that Broncos pass rush to just 2 sacks, how does that kind of help bleed into going up against this Vikings pass rush this week?
Yeah, similar but different. And on the edges, I thought that was a nice job by Josh and probably maybe his best game as a Commander. And I'd kind of joked with him earlier. I said, like, look, it's hard to know, like, how you're improving right now. I said a year ago, man, you're fired up to, play Indiana or Ohio State, and like, yeah, I can block that guy. And then now you're blocking guys every week that are like, man, this dude is really good. And all of a sudden, like, your skills keep improving. So you see that jump take place with a lot of the, first and second year players because their confidence is gaining, they're getting momentum. And so not comparing yourself to Laramie, but like, am I improving? And I think that's an important piece for a young player. And you do gain confidence in that. And our whole game sometimes is comparison, this versus this and this versus this. But sometimes, like, am I improving? Am I getting better? And so I was super pumped to see him do that. It's an important part of every game, line play, run actions. I thought that helped, in our game this week, that here's a team that if you can run it and you can stay committed to it, you don't let them pin your ears back and go. And that'll be similar this week as well.
Well, only one player has played on every Commanders offensive snap in this regular season. That player, Josh Conerly. All right, hey, do not waste time this holiday season worrying whether your financial transactions are safe. You this holiday season can stay one step ahead of scams and keep your money secure with Cash App. Cash App's 24/7 fraud monitoring helps detect and alert you for unusual card activity should someone gain access to your card so you can act fast if something seems off. You also can lock or unlock your Cash App card instantly right in the app for extra control and peace of mind. And if you're about to send money to someone for a deal that's too good to be true, and Cash App flags the deal as a potential scam, Cash App will warn you before you send the money. Cash App is here for you, and for a limited time only, new Cash App customers can use Cash App's exclusive code to earn some additional cash for real. Just download Cash App, use the exclusive referral code SECURE10 in your profile, send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partner or partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Promotions provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. More now on the Washington Commanders, off them practicing on Wednesday afternoon in preparation for their game at the 4-8 Minnesota Vikings this Sunday afternoon in Week 14 of the NFL's 2025 regular season. Let's talk Commanders defense. 5 Commanders defensive players were on the team's injury report for Wednesday afternoon's practice. Interior defensive lineman Javon Kinlaw did not practice due to a back problem. Linebacker Bobby Wagner did not practice due to a knee issue. Linebacker Frankie Louvu was a limited participant in practice due to a shoulder ailment. Edge defender Drake Jackson did not practice. He's listed as dealing with knee and groin injuries. Jackson is on the reserve/injured list, on which he was placed on October 16th, one day after the Commanders signed him as an unrestricted free agent. Now, him being put on the list reportedly was a pre-planned move. The Commanders on November 13th announced having opened the 21-day practice window for Jackson, but the time is running out for him to be activated off the list. Also, edge defender Von Miller did not practice, but due to rest. For the Vikings, their QB1, J.J. McCarthy, he on Wednesday afternoon was a full participant in practice. He did not play in the Vikings' 26-0 loss at the Seattle Seahawks this past Sunday due to a concussion. The Vikings starting quarterback for that game was undrafted rookie Max Brosmer. McCarthy is expected to start against the Commanders this Sunday afternoon. One of the more interesting moments of head coach Dan Quinn's day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon was him saying that he is open to remaining as the team's defensive coordinator beyond this season. The Commanders have had 2 games with Quinn as defensive coordinator off him on November 10th, having announced having demoted Joe Witt Jr. and having taken over as defensive coordinator. And the defense in each game, while far from perfect, has shown improvement, albeit with each game against a mediocre to bad offense. But regarding Quinn as the Commanders' defensive coordinator, we, during his pre-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon, had this back and forth between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Quinn.
For you, taking over the play call, is that something you missed, and do you feel it has maybe energized you in any way?
Missed, yes. Energized, no. Do I like it? Yes. But I would say energized during the game for sure. I would say like the other, like 6 days and like 21 hours, no. But the game part of it is like calling it is a lot of fun. The players energize me. That's honestly the truth of it all. Why I love coaching. I like being around them. I like teaching. And so during the game, like I'm on the trip with them, and so riding it with them, and I want to make sure I'm giving them every chance they can to play at their best.
Is it easier for you to take over that when you have, you've built a lot of what you wanted to establish, some of what you wanted here? You have guys in the offensive staff, head coaches over there. Is it easier for you to do something like that now than maybe it would have been, just coming in as that?
Yeah, that's fair, John. And I think it's also accurate because there's other things that come across that you need your time and your attention, but then you're learning the staff too. When you're a first-year coach, you're learning one another and how that routine goes. And so, like, our staff definitely grew tighter this year, and so now I'm definitely leaning in more onto others. And I think I even spoke with Nikki one other time to utilize this talented group of guys. And Joe's also been at the very front of that. We have a battle rhythm together. That was easy to get into together, and Brian and David and other guys, on the staff to do that. I definitely leaned in hard on them, which would have been harder earlier.
Okay, so some more from Dan Quinn on him serving as both the Commanders' head coach and defensive coordinator. He is sounding open to remaining as defensive coordinator beyond this season. Whether he remains as the team's defensive coordinator beyond this season, to me, is going to come down primarily to 4 factors. A, how the defense performs the rest of this season. B, whether Dan Quinn wants to remain as defensive coordinator, i.e. he feels comfortable continuing with that role as part of his job. C, whether general manager Adam Peters wants Dan Quinn to remain as defensive coordinator. As remember, it is Peters, not Quinn, who runs Commanders football operations. And D, who is available to serve as Commanders defensive coordinator. In other words, if there is a fired head coach or a fired defensive coordinator or a free agent defensive coordinator or some sort of available defensive coach who Adam Peters really likes and or who Dan Quinn really likes, then that may be the direction that the team goes. But the Commanders' defense in this game at the Vikings this Sunday afternoon does have a great opportunity to have a really good game. The Vikings, primarily due to their quarterback play, have been a terrible offensive team. The Vikings for this regular season through Week 13 are number 29 out of 32 NFL teams in total offense in terms of DVOA, and are number 29 out of 32 NFL teams in total offense in terms of expected points added per play per RBSDM.com. We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange with Dan Quinn.
Coach, you mentioned earlier about the strides on defense. You mentioned making the right decisions. How much of that do you feel like is experience learned over the course of the season and for some guys is inherent?
It's a little bit of both. The inherent part, sometimes I think what you're speaking of is like instincts. You know, what to do, how to do it. Sometimes that can come with more zone. We've played more zone recently. It won't always be that case. Sometimes it's by the plan. This is better for right now, but it does allow you to have some vision on a quarterback. Knowing where people are, spatial awareness, like part of that's instinctive, but like communication plays a big part of that too, knowing where a certain player is, where emotion is. So I think it's a combination of instinctive players, but also like say it again, do it again. Like we definitely streamlined some things to make everything run faster. And to do that, there had to be maybe one less hesitation, one less step, even if it was more vanilla in some ways. That was the trade-off now to like start, build.
All right. Hey, if you are a Commanders fan, check out bgobsession.com, an outstanding site for Commanders conversation. The Sons of Washington forum on bgobsession.com is tremendous. BG Obsession, or BGO, has been going strong since 2009. No politics, just friendly and passionate discussion about the Commanders and more. Great contests, game day chats, and camaraderie. Both old school and new school fans are welcome. Visit and join BGO at bgobsession.com. bgobsession.com, home to your burgundy and gold obsession. Hey, please consider subscribing to the podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. There may be no bigger indictment of the Washington Commanders' 2025 season than the praise that the team has received for its performance in the 27-26 overtime loss to the Denver Broncos at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football this past Sunday night. We, and I include myself in this, have praised the Commanders for, in the game, doing a lot of good things and putting forth a respectable, admirable effort. And some, not me, but some, have noted that the Commanders in the game played hard. I get where all of this talk is coming from, and like I said, I myself have engaged in some of this talk, but man, we would have never engaged in this talk if the Commanders were having the season that they were supposed to have, right? We would have agonized over that overtime loss to the Broncos and complained about every little thing that went wrong. That's what you do when you have an NFL team that's having a good season. We, unfortunately, do not have an NFL team that's having a good season. All of that said, it is a credit to head coach Dan Quinn that he clearly has not lost the team. You always worry about that in a lost season, the head coach losing the team. But we so far have had zero signs of Quinn losing the team. And it was interesting that a decent amount of Quinn's pre-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon was spent talking about the team's effort and attitude toward the season. Heck, we even got a question that was perhaps inspired by Operation Loseout 2.0. We, during Dan Quinn's pre-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon, had this exchange.
Coach, inside of these walls, yourself, your other coaches, that locker room there, they see that great week of practice last week. They see arguably the best overall game from a full team perspective against the Broncos this past week. Outside of the walls, fan base already looking towards next year potentially for some of them. Why is it imperative for you that you dial down and you finish this season up to the Commanders' standards?
The last part, the standards, that's what you said. And, man, like, as teammates and from the players, for certainly, like, they deserve the best from us as coaches and the best from one another. Like, they have busted their ass, to get it right. And so performing well and getting it right, that's a really important part of it. And I do love that about our team, about, like we're talking about the standards and wanting to go battle for one another, like that's such a real thing here. And so when you put that much into something, the feeling of going for it and doing it together, like, man, that it's hard to express how strong that is. And certainly it is with this team. So it's really important. Building those habits for everybody who's coming back into here, knowing this is the standard, this is what we like, it's not rules, it's standards. And, like, it's not something you follow. Like, this is how we do things. And I think that's a big difference.
And as much as I want this lost Commanders season to result in a top 5 pick in the 2026 NFL draft for our team, I do not want the team not playing hard or not playing well. The team not playing hard would be a really bad sign regarding the culture. And the team, especially key young players, not playing well would be a bad sign regarding the state of the roster. What happened on Sunday night truly was the ideal scenario, a quality performance, but also a loss. We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider Tashawn Reed of the Washington Post and Dan Quinn.
Dan, you mentioned last week having one of your favorite weeks of practice and kind of pushing the guys to go hard. Obviously, you're focused on it right now and winning week to week, but also are those moments sort of good information for you to have for the future when you're thinking about guys, being a long-term future of the Commanders?
For sure. And, although we're not going to have a winning record, like, that does not back off of, like, winning standards and habits and things that you want to do, like elite standards. I think of a guy like Jeremy Reeves, like, controlling the things he can, like, you want to talk about a guy who hustles? That's not ever the case. And so when you see people who have exceptionally high standards for things, of course that rubs off. I even showed that to the team. Here's Zach, becoming one of the leaders in all time of, catching receptions at tight ends. But you're going to see him on the jugs today, tomorrow, the next day. Like, he doesn't get tired of those things that really matter and those standards. They're boring. They're monotonous and no, man, you don't ever think you have it. So, yeah, it matters a lot. The practices do, but it's also a lot of fun to compete together. And essentially, man, that's also what we do. It's an awesome op for all of us to put out our best, and that's my job, to help the player become as good as they can be. And that's at Zach that year, or somebody in their first year. That doesn't change.
And we heard Dan Quinn reference tight end Zach Ertz. He, in the overtime loss to the Broncos, moved to being number 5 in NFL history in regular season receptions by a tight end, and moved to being number 8 in NFL history in regular season receiving yards by a tight end. We also heard Dan Quinn say that the Commanders cannot finish with a winning record. Yes, they are 3-9, can finish no better than 8-9, and so it remains that Washington has not had back-to-back winning regular seasons since 2015 and 2016, and those were barely back-to-back winning regular seasons. 9-7 in the 2015 regular season, 8-7-1 in the 2016 regular season. Each of the Commanders' last 2 games, of course, has been an overtime game. The 16-13 overtime loss to the Miami Dolphins in Madrid, Spain on November 16th, and this 27-26 overtime loss to the Denver Broncos at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football this past Sunday night. First time since the 2010 regular season that Washington has had at least 2 overtime games in a regular season. The Redskins in that 2010 regular season actually had 4 overtime games. The Skins went 3-1 in those games. We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange between Commanders insider Tom Shad of the Washington Post and Dan Quinn.
When you have 2 overtime close games in a row, especially this past week when you're playing one of the best teams in the NFL, could you guys carry confidence from that to the rest of the season? Hey, we can hang with anybody?
Yeah, I think I probably framed it a little differently to say when we, had the week and the preparation that we did, like you can't help but like go battle for it. There's not like a silver lining that I take from that. What I do take from it is this is the small, this is the tweak, this is the margin. Like there's not like a perfect game and none of us are going to play it, but the fact that we played faster with less mistakes, that means, man, like drive faster. Like you're closer even more. And so we're going to find those things that push us over the top. But if you have the effort and the speed like that, man, you got a lot of things that can go your way. So when I was talking about next play, it might have been a big penalty. You still got to go score, or fourth down conversion because like you're in overtime and like this is what you have to do. So those are moments that, you gain from that. Not as much from the final score, like when you lay it out there, like that's kind of part of being a competitor. Like you got to put it all out there and knowing that you might get your heart broke some. And like that's the life we live here. And so it gets criticized, it gets, celebrated. And so like you just try to like, absolutely battle for it and knowing that like you're not going to win every game. But man, like if you can throw out good games, good performances, learn from them, like I can stay consistent doing that as opposed to the high and the low of it. So you get pissed, it's frustrating. What do we got to do? You have like normal emotions. We're, regular dudes in that way, but you do want to keep finding like there's more under the tank in the tank. So like let's go get it.
And I like that answer from Dan Quinn because the question asking if the overtime loss to the Broncos led to a message of, hey, we can play with anybody, that's loser talk. And you as an NFL head coach should never want to engage in loser talk. So good job, Dan Quinn, in how he handled that question. And, as much as the Commanders did do some good stuff on Sunday night, they are still in the midst of a 7-game losing streak. They have gone from 3-2 to 3-9. Injuries, in my opinion, are by far the number one reason. But still, this team has lost 7 consecutive games in a 17-game regular season. We, on Wednesday afternoon, had this exchange between 7 News DC sports director Scott Abraham and Dan Quinn.
Dan, in a lot of cases, you can learn a lot about a team through adversity and challenges. So what has stood out to you or what's impressed you about this group in particular kind of during this tough time of a losing streak?
I think I'm going to keep coming back to resilience. What I was pleased on this game, there was a next play mindset. And as disappointing as it was, like the example I use, they scored on the very first drive, went right down the field and scored, and there was like zero flinch on the offense. And it wasn't like, oh, here we go, none of that. And so the same, if we got stopped in the fourth quarter offensively, the defense was ready to go get a stop. And so I thought there was this resilience for the next play. Like if that one went to 6 quarters, we were going to be down to fight. Like whatever, like they just had that. And so I think when you see a team have resilience, that's a big deal. What I saw in Spain, I loved energy and toughness and doing things together. Neither of these games worked out for us and stung a lot, but there are things that I liked about their competitive nature, their toughness, and like those things matter in our game. They matter for the standard here. And when you get to demonstrate it and express it, man, like it may not be seen on the outside, the walls, but for damn sure it is on the inside.
All right, here is an outstanding book for you if you're a Washington fan or for a Washington fan who you care about this holiday season. RFK All Access by Scott Cunningham, who served as a photographer for NFL properties for years and who photographed the Redskins extensively during their glory days in the 1980s and early 1990s. Scott, via RFK All Access, has put together a compilation of his best Redskins photos, many of which are behind-the-scenes photos. Joe Gibbs, Jack Kent Cook, Richie Pettibone, the Hogs, the Posse, Sonny Sam and Frank, all and so many more are featured in this book, which is 392 pages of glorious Skins history, 5 pounds of Redskins gold. If you are a serious Washington fan, if you are a Skins historian, this book is a must-have. Makes for a terrific addition to any Skins-themed man cave. Also makes for a great gift. I have the book. It is sensational. Heck, this is a book that has been endorsed by Joe Gibbs himself. Quote, "This is a great book filled with great memories," end quote. And the book now is available for an all-time low price. Take advantage of this special holiday season sale. RFK All Access. You can get the book by visiting rfkallaccess.com. And when you order the book, mention in the notes section that Al Galdi sent you. Doing that helps out this podcast a lot. That's rfkallaccess.com. rfkallaccess.com. And mention that Al Galdi sent you. Well, the Washington Capitals now are alone atop the Eastern Conference. A 7-1 win at the San Jose Sharks late night on Wednesday night. The Caps won their 6th consecutive game, and for the 9th time in 10 games, the Caps in the NHL's 2025-2026 regular season improved to 17-9-2. Good for 36 points, most points in the Eastern Conference. Our Caps are on fire right now. They also have the best goal differential in the Eastern Conference, plus 27. They won 7-1 despite mixed results in puck possession. The Caps had 30 shots on goal to the Sharks' 24, but per natural stat trick had 37 5-on-5 shot attempts to the Sharks' 38, including 7 5-on-5 high-danger shot attempts to the Sharks' 10, but two Caps players each scored 2 goals, Alex Ovechkin and Ryan Leonard. Caps winger Alex Ovechkin, the grade 8, 2 goals, giving him 14 goals in this regular season and giving him 911 career NHL regular season goals, the most in NHL history. He scored an even-strength goal 8:25 into the first period, and he scored a power play goal 2:41 into the second period as the Caps went 1 for 2 on the power play. He had a game-high 8 total shot attempts, including 4 shots on goal. Alex Ovechkin, in this his age 40 season, is tied for 16th in the NHL in goals for this regular season at 14. And rookie winger Ryan Leonard, in this his age 21 season, finally is getting rewarded for the terrific puck possession stats that he has been putting up. Leonard had 2 goals and 2 assists. He scored an even-strength goal 13:35 into the first period, and he scored an even-strength goal 1:03 into the third period, giving him 7 goals in this regular season. He had a game-high 6 shots on goal. And how about this? Ryan Leonard became the first Caps rookie to have at least 4 points in a regular season game since Nicklas Backstrom on March 3rd, 2008. The Caps took Leonard with the number 8 overall pick in the 2023 NHL draft, and he has been really good. The Caps starting goaltender for this 7-1 win at the Sharks late night on Wednesday night was the Caps' number 2 goaltender, the Outlaw, Charlie Lindgren. He was good. He stopped 23 of the 24 shots on goal that he faced, and he had a secondary assist. The Caps went 4 for 5 on the penalty kill, but winger Brandon Duhaime scored a short-handed goal, a 17:07 into the first period for his 4th goal in this regular season, and he had a secondary assist. We had mixed news for the Caps on the injury front. Center Nick Dowd was back. That was good. He returned from an 8-game absence caused by an upper body injury. The Caps on Wednesday evening announced having activated Dowd off injured reserve, which he had been on since November 26, and the Caps on Wednesday evening announced having loaned forward Bogdan Trineyev to their AHL affiliate, the Hershey Bears. However, defenseman John Carlson did not play due to an upper body injury, and winger Justin Sordiff did not play due to a lower body injury. Defenseman Dylan McElrath was a healthy scratch. Next up for the Caps are 2 games this weekend at the Anaheim Ducks Friday night at 10 and home to the Columbus Blue Jackets Sunday night at 7. And let's talk college basketball. Georgetown in the 2025-2026 regular season improved to 6-2 overall with a 90-81 win over UMBC at Capital One Arena on Wednesday night. The game was fairly close, but the Hoyas actually never trailed. A terrific offense for the Hoyas, 90 points, 11 for 23 on threes, 25 for 41 on twos, 7 for 10 on free throws, 25 assists versus just 6 turnovers. Georgetown's defense did have some problems. The Hoyas allowed UMBC UMBC to go 22 for 39 on twos and gave up 20 fast break points, but the Hoyas did hold UMBC to 8 for 23 on threes. Each of Georgetown's 5 starters scored at least 11 points. So the Hoyas' leading scorer was 6'7" Caleb Williams. He in 33 minutes as a starter had 18 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists versus no turnovers. Went 2 for 6 on threes and 6 for 10 on twos. Did not attempt a free throw. Next up for Georgetown is a big game at number 16 North Carolina Sunday evening at 5. Meantime, Virginia, it in this regular season improved to 7-1 overall with an 88-69 win at Texas late night on Wednesday night in the ACC-SEC Challenge. A dominant win for UVA. Its biggest deficit was a 4-point deficit, which came early in the first half, and the Cavaliers led by as many as 28 points. That was in the second half. UVA's offense was very good. The Cavs scored 88 points, went 12 for 24 on threes, and 16 for 28 on twos, and had 18 assists versus 7 turnovers, and the point total could have been even higher as the Cavs went just 20 for 29 on free throws, and UVA's defense was great. The Wahoos held Texas to just 4 for 19 on threes and just 20 for 40 on twos. So UVA's leading scorer was 5'10" true freshman Chance Mallory. He in 20 minutes, 3 seconds off the bench had 16 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists versus no turnovers. He went 2 for 2 on threes, 1 for 1 on twos, and 8 for 9 on free throws. And UVA got major contributions from 2 international freshman bigs, 6'9" Belgian true freshman Tester Ritter. He in 28-24 as a starter had 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 assists versus 2 turnovers. He went 1 for 1 on threes, 3 for 5 on twos, and 6 for 9 on free throws. And 7-foot German true freshman Johann Grunloh, 1709 as a starter, 15 points, 5 rebounds. He went 2 for 3 on threes, 4 for 4 on twos, and 1 for 3 on free throws. Next up for Virginia, home to Dayton, Saturday at noon. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Friday show, episode 1212. We'll have much more on the Washington Commanders, in-depth preview of their game at the Minnesota Vikings this Sunday afternoon at 1. Also on Friday's show, I'll talk college football conference championship weekend, previews of number 17 Virginia versus Duke at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina on Saturday night at 8 in the ACC championship game, and number 25 James Madison home to Troy Friday night at 7 in the Sun Belt Conference championship game. And on Friday's show, we'll discuss our Washington Wizards. So the Wizards are home to the Boston Celtics Thursday night at 7. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we'll talk to you on Friday.
Dan, what's your level of optimism for Noah Brown this week?
Very much in the green, high. So I got good optimism, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.